baby.
We in here, yeah, we in here, 'cause we been.
Y'all better get comfortable with saying black.
We in here, yeah, we in here, 'cause
Black versus the Board of Education.
Cause we came here, three of us now. We in here, yeah, we in here, 'cause we came here, three of us now. And you know that we don't ever go forget because we been here.
That's why we are indeed a whole mood.
That's it.
Welcome to another episode of Black versus the Board of Education. My name is Miss Laureen, and I welcome you into this space. As usual, we like to get the party started and let you know who's in the building as your panelists. So why don't we go ahead and do that? Where's Melissa? I don't see Melissa. Where's she at? Hey,
Hi.
Melissa. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Lovebug.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa, and I am a freshman at UC Berkeley.
Well, welcome back to the discussion. I hear it's going to be quite a good one today. And as we're transitioning, let's go ahead to our in-studio panelists. We'll start with the lovely lady right here. Hey, hey, hey.
Hi, everyone. I'm Leah.
Hey, Leah. Welcome back. And right next to you is...
How you doing, everybody? I'm Fox.
Mr. Fox is in the building.
Mr. Fox is in the building.
And today we're talking about the fight for Oakland schools, transparency, accountability, and tough decisions. Now, full disclaimer, I saw this video on Facebook, I want to say last week, and this gentleman was talking, and I was like, ooh, he said, I don't know what something is, but I know a colonizer when I see one. And I was like, me and him need to be friends. So why don't you go ahead and pull up our special guest for today. Hello, hello, hello. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me here.
Okay.
Now, can you go ahead and introduce yourself for our guests who are joining us?
Yes, I'm Mike Hutchinson, and I'm currently the Oakland School Board Director for District 4.
So that's like the school board member, right? Out here, we
Yes.
call them trustees. So in Oakland, you guys are known as directors.
Yes.
And so can you just kind of give us the landscape of Oakland Unified School District at the present, how you see it?
Okay. Let me give the quick version and the quick overview.
Okay.
First, I'm a proud graduate of Oakland Public Schools. I'm born and raised here, and for a long time I worked directly with youth until 2012, when the two schools I had worked at for 10 years were both closed, and I was fired from my job for trying to organize the community against those closures. That kind of sent me down a rabbit hole, and I became very determined to make sure that didn't happen to anyone else, and to kind of work on finding a way for my school district to get out of the death spiral we were in. So I've really been grinding for over a dozen years. In 2020, I was finally elected to the school board. I was redistricted and elected again in 22. And kind of our long-term mission here in Oakland has been, we were taken over by the state of California in 2003. And so we are still currently under receivership, and we have been for over 20 years. And we are now 18 months away from finally leaving receivership. And that is what I am solely focused on. And so along with some of the other madness we've just had to work our way through, it's mainly been because we were taken over by the state in 2003. The state came in and broke us, pillaged our district, and we still haven't gotten back full local control yet.
So when you say they came in and they pillaged your district, is that the school closures, or was it more than just the school closures that we're looking at?
Well, first, and please, I have a tendency to be very long-winded. So if I start to talk too much, please give me the hook. So when we were taken over by the state in 2003, that was a specific moment in time, especially in California, when a number of school districts started to get taken over for their perceived financial failures. And if you look at who was taken over, it was Richmond, Vallejo, Oakland, and a number of, it got up to 10 different cities that were taken over at some point, largely cities that were perceived to have Black leadership. And for us here in Oakland, the school board at the time were presented with a choice: either make $30 million in mid-year cuts because they were out of money, or accept a loan from the state. That board accepted a loan from the state of $30 million. one of the strings attached was then the state would put a state administrator in charge of our district's finances. That state administrator quickly took control of everything. The school board had no authority and the community was disenfranchised. And they ran that loan up to its maximum of $100 million. And so we have been paying it back since, and we regained partial local control back in 2009. And so, you know, I've been on the school board now for 4 years. And so we've worked really hard to get the district back on track, set up a different way of doing business. And we are now finally poised to have our last payment for the state loan made in the summer of 26, and finally free of this extra oversight that we receive.
Okay, so now that you've provided me context, I understand the urgency of your Facebook post now. Okay,
Yes.
so you're
Yes.
almost at your last payment. And so I'm understanding now that with the alternative budget that's being proposed, does that extend the payments? Does it, what happens with what's going on with that?
So one of the things is, since we were taken over by the state in 2003, everything's been broken and it's been chaos. And so before I got into the school board in 2020, what was happening in Oakland was very similar to what had been happening with the public school district in Sacramento, where we had a series of really bad financial advisors who there seemed to always be a $30 million deficit, which drove mid-year budget cuts. And in the end, all of a sudden the money was there. And it was just this dysfunction and instability. The other thing that happened in Oakland in the period of takeover is that coincided with a proliferation of charter schools nationally. And so Oakland became ground zero. And for 15 years, we had the highest rate of charter schools in the state of California. And that's what dovetailed into school closures. And so we were caught in this cycle of being told we had declining enrollment or too many schools. So schools were closed, and the closed schools were largely privatized and turned into charter schools. And at all while we didn't have full local control. So as our elected school board couldn't even make these decisions. And so there has been a long route to get to this point. For us now in Oakland, it all comes down to finances and managing the budget. And we broke through of this false narrative of the past and these austerity measures. And we've really put forward a new way of doing business. But most people don't understand just how a normal process should work. So the normal budgeting process that we should be in is in the springtime, right about now, we make budget adjustments because a large part of our budget is staffing. And in order to change staffing, we have to notify those employees with a March 15th letter. So largely what we're doing now is creating room in our projected budget for next year to fund the priorities we want to fund when we approve our budget in June. If we don't make these votes now to issue March 15th letters, it locks in current staffing levels for the following year, which no district can afford. And there is this statutory deadline to issue those notices by March 15th. What we have in Oakland is we have a lot of people who shouldn't even be on the school board. And there's just a lot of madness that goes on. And so if we don't issue these March 15th letters, we won't be able to pass a balanced budget. And since we're already receiving extra oversight, that will immediately trigger us into a new receivership, which we will have no way to find our way out of.
Oh, wow.
Now,
let me pause you. Hold on real quick. Let me pause you really quick. So you guys hear what he's saying, right? Yep. Melissa, what are your first thoughts? And then we'll come to Leah and Fox.
Well, my first thoughts are I'm hearing, as he's speaking, a lot of similarities and things that we talk about continuously within Sacramento and like some of how we've said some of the same things. And so I actually have a question. What are some of the specific issues that you've run into and how you made the comment or the statement, there are certain people that shouldn't be on the school board. What are specific problems that you've run into that lead you to that conclusion?
Well, we have a bigger story in Oakland, and the story goes back to we in 2020 and 2022, and those election cycles. As a community, we threw out all 7 school board directors. We threw them all out of office and replaced them all. And that had become the strategy that a lot of us worked really hard on to break our city out of things. So we turned the city where 65% of the voters voted against school closure policies, which brought a new board into office. But some of the people that replaced the old board members literally parachuted in from who knows where they even came from a few years ago. So we have a lot of fake virtue signals that go on. There's a lot of egos and individual agendas. And so we could have made more progress faster if some of these other people hadn't stood in our way. And I didn't know if I'd be successful once I got onto the board. I knew I needed to get onto the board. And it's actually worked out better than I could have ever imagined, because I've been able to partner with our superintendent and senior staff. And we've been able to craft a plan to actually bring us forward. And so what we have now, though, is for people really trying to throw barriers into what we've already voted on and established. And whether it's because they're uncomfortable with change, whether it's because they're trying to protect their own ego, or whether it's they have some ulterior motives. We're at our last hurdle now, really, to finally get free as a district after more than 20 years. And as we've gotten closer to the finish line, there's just been more of these hurdles kind of thrown up. So I can talk about, I'm going to write a book about it one day, because it is shocking how individuals had operated in certain positions. And so there is no invisible hand or those kinds of things in Oakland, especially not anymore. But it's individuals who are just highly problematic in their own right.
Leah.
Yeah, definitely just kind of just going off on that, how you talked about how the individuals are definitely like hindering you, and the fact that this was all able to be done in was a short amount of time to like get all those members off the
school board.
Off the school board, and just to replace it and just kind of not renovate, but kind of just change the direction of how things are going in a positive manner at that. I see.
Do you have a question for him, or that's just your overall observation?
That's my observation I was making.
Okay, Fox.
I got a question for you. As I was
pull that closer to you, sir.
As I was listening to you talk about the borrowed money, you guys had to borrow money to invest into your own schools. The district wasn't trying to invest off into their schools enough for that the school had to independently go outside, borrow money just to take this money and not pay your bills or wash your clothes, but to independently, we want to invest back off into our schools. And then because of that, I come into receivership of your rules.
Is that how that works?
Oh, it's even worse than that.
Oh gosh.
And so, as a public school district, we receive a large majority of our funding from the state.
Right.
And yes, there might have been some mismanagement by the school board at that time and by the district at that time. But if a local school district fails, it really should be a question: is that really on the local school district? So then the state swooped in to give us this loan. They made almost 3 times as much money as we needed. They made that available to us. And so it's like giving folks a credit card.
Right.
And then they were in charge of the spending for the 6 years that our credit card bill was run up.
Okay, wait, pause. Are you saying the state was responsible for the bills that were incurred during this time? Is that what you just said?
We took out a loan of, in the end, it was around $35 million.
Uh-huh.
And the state put a state administrator in charge of our finances and of our school district
Right.
for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
During those 6 years, that 35 million became 100 million, is what I'm saying. Then
interest
just
or
no, that was my last point. That's just the principle. Then what they did,
they gonna make a loan for a principal for that much to invest off into their own kids?
oh, it gets better. Then our debt was sold on Wall Street to Goldman Sachs.
Wait.
And they all profited off of our 20 years of debt and servitude, where we've had to pay back almost $120 million.
How you sell a debt on Wall Street that got to do with children for our own public school systems?
We were sold out. And that's when it became open season on Oakland, where every privatizer, every charter school, every crazy scheme, because we had no local control. So our school board had no authority to vote for 6 years. Yeah, and that's when our schools were closed. That's when our charter schools got here. It's been wild. So what happened in after Katrina in New Orleans in 2007, most of those people developed that playbook off of Oakland starting in 2003.
I mean, and it's not funny. It's not funny.
Oh, it's okay. So this is, one of the good things. See, you're not getting me rolling now. One of the good things about Sacramento was it was years later than what had happened in Oakland. So Oakland was one of the last districts taken over in this run, because folks finally caught on, and it wasn't a real help. It was a way where they attacked the public education systems and what were perceived as Black schools.
Right.
And they encumbered us with this loan where we've had debt payments now every year in the millions. We still have a trustee who can stay or rescind any decision our school board makes. And to top it off, we have to pay a couple $1 million a year for them to provide this oversight to this day.
Wait,
so
hold on. I'm just trying to understand what you're talking about. Hold on. This is getting muddy. So before you can spend money, you have to run it by a trustee who is part of the state?
So, okay. And this has been, I was on the circuit for years talking about this. So it's really what happened in Oakland to our school district is a takeover law straight out of ALEC, straight out of the conservative playbook. So the same thing that happened in Flint, Michigan, that led to their water crisis, is what happened to some school districts in California, where it is a state takeover of our public institution, which effectively disenfranchised our community. And so
was it exacerbated at all by gentrification in the area?
No, but it came at the same time that we saw the first real wave of gentrification in 2003 coming through Oakland. So it's a little, those of us who have been in my wing of this educational justice fight, we talk about these things have happened in parallel, along with the mass displacement of the Black community, where Oakland's lost half of our Black population over the last 30 years. Well, we're down to about 24, maybe even less than that, % Black now, when at our high point, we were close to 50% Black. And so I think we were attacked by the state because of those things. And it allowed, we have valuable properties that they all wanted a piece of. And we were also being, the mayor at that time in Oakland was Jerry Brown, rehabilitating himself before he went on to be governor. And he worked very closely with our state senator at the time, Don Parada. And they were trying to get our properties for a long time. So Don Parada created a bill in Sacramento where we took a loan. And they sold us out.
Invested a lot of that money off into the penitentiaries as they took them as they was taking them programs up out of that school district and opened them up freshly right into the penitentiaries.
Yeah, and he also still funds 2 charter schools in Oakland, and so I can go down the list. So all of that happened at the same time. For us in our takeover, there's a couple of stages to how these laws work. So from 2003 to 2009, we had a state administrator. Inglewood still has a state administrator right now. And a state administrator has full authority to do everything. The school board's vote doesn't count. Disenfranchised completely.
Somebody just asked
So there was still an elected board, but the elected board couldn't carry out their duties.
No.
Okay.
And in Oakland's case, I mean, it was a famous first meeting when the state administrator got here in 2003, because he sat there and told the board, you no longer have any authority. Your votes don't count. Basically, if you still want to show up, you can, but it doesn't matter. and that's how it's
game out here.
And because we were Oakland, and because this didn't happen to everyone, nobody cared. So in 2009, our status changed, and we went from having a full administrator to now a trustee, which we still have. So the trustee has the ability to stay or rescind any decision the board makes. So they can't take action on their own.
In regard to finances or period?
Well, so this all becomes political at a certain point. So technically, they can stay or rescind any decision.
So basically, what you're saying is the people can come to the board. I march up there with my family. I give my 2 minutes on spill. We make our spill. We effective. The board hears us out and decides to say, you know what? We heard this decision. It's effective. We're going to do this. This is what we're about to do for the people. And the trustee can come through, even though a board has made a decision for the people of that community that came through and wanted this decision to be made, and hand it over and say, hey, this is what we need to do. And the trustee could just say, nah, I don't think so.
Exactly.
Wow.
How do y'all get, well, I guess you don't get anything done. I was about to say, well, how do you get anything done?
So for one, I've
do the
taken out
trustee
one.
even have to participate in the board meetings? What the families come speak at the school board meetings? Do the trustees even are they even coming up to be there so that when it comes time to say, hey, this is why we made the decision? Have they even been there to hear the passion of the people?
Our current trustee, who's been in this job now for 3 years, last week was the first time she had ever come to anything in person.
Shut the front door.
Oh my God.
We pay her 6 figures to oversee us.
So she gets money out of this budget she's supposed to be overseeing, and she can't pop in?
6 figures. And if you keep me talking, then I'll tell you about before she was our trustee.
I would like to hear it.
She was paid to run the district's finances for a year as an outside consultant. And she went from getting paid to run the district's finances, not even being a district employee, which should have never happened, to now got a job as our overseer to oversee her mistakes when she was mismanaging the money herself.
Hold on. So if you're just now joining us, we are talking about the fight for Oakland schools, transparency, accountability, and tough decisions with Director Mike Hutchinson out of Oakland Unified School District. We are just in the midst of the muck at this point. Melissa, I'm waiting for you to jump in. Leah, you too, because this is a lot going on.
Yeah.
And I don't understand. I'm just trying to figure out how you sitting on here smiling and relatively sane, sir. Because it seems like they've been trying to get you to pop off for a minute.
Yeah, but I figured out a way to break through. So I'll get to that later. But I've been the tip of the spear for 12 years, but now I'm sitting on the school board, so I can actually do real damage and change these things. And so it's actually a positive story in the end. We're still at all the madness that's been happening. I'm sorry.
You got Miss Tawana about to jump off her couch. Look at her. I am done, she said.
What she said, what he basically just told us is this lady, she just got sentenced in jail, and her sentence is to do her sentence at her own house. Like you got it good. I did the crime, I did the stuff, and I'm gonna do the time at my house and continue to drive my car
and tell y'all what to do in the
process. And I just decided that I'm gonna give myself a couple months off for good behavior.
Melissa,
I don't even think I have a question. I'm just confused that if there's someone who's higher than the board, but who also does not put in as much work as the board, what's the point of the board?
Well, the board is elected and the people chose the board. I don't know if anybody ever chose this particular person. However, when you come in and you usurp the authority of the person who's supposed to be, representing the people, that's a whole conflict of interest, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
then it makes me think of, because again, I've been reading your Facebook posts and I've been watching the videos you've been posting. The people that are currently representing the people, who are they representing?
Mhm. So this is the whole problem with this takeover law, and how it's been played out, because we know here in Oakland this kind of stuff doesn't happen in other cities. And it's a colonial model. They took us over to come in to raid and destroy our community. These people, with the amount of charter schools and other kinds of privatizers that came into our district, they've looted tens of millions of dollars out of our district, probably even more than that. And so our real story, though, has
on
been
this person's watch, right? On this trustee's watch.
On everyone's watch. And so to fast forward a little bit. So now we have a trustee, and this brings us to this budget process that we're going through now. So we are right on track. We've had this planned out for years, a series of budget adjustments every year and structural changes to be able to build the kind of district we need to have going forward. And for now, the county in the last couple of weeks has tried to flex on us out of the blue, saying we're having there's problems with our budget. They don't trust us to make decisions. And this is the fallacy of the whole setup, is they're paid to provide oversight over our budget, presumably to help us. So if there is any sort of problem, which there's not, but if there's any sort of problem, where have they been for the last year to say anything about that or do anything? I was board president 2 years ago on the school board. The trustee didn't stay or do anything when I was board president because I told her not to, and she knew not to mess with me. And so there's also this is politics now. And Oakland's the 45th largest city in the country. And I'm here for a reason. So that part has been changing. That's why we're so close to finally leaving receivership. But there's a constant attacks from the outside. I mean, I could talk about how Attorney General Rob Bonta was trying to force us into extra oversight for over a year, even though Oakland is his home district and most of us know him personally. And he refused to do anything publicly, but he was trying to get us to agree that his office would take over decisions. just a year ago, out of the blue.
What do you think that's attributed to, though? Like, why would the Attorney General try to? Because this is where I'm getting confused, and maybe you can help me. Because there should be somewhere a separation of powers, right? And I understand that the Oakland County Office of Education, or the Oakland, is it the Oakland County Office of Education, or is it Contra Costa Alameda County? What is it? Alameda County Office of Education. So they're putting their hands in there because they're supposed to have some sort of oversight, but they've been MIA. So, then you have the Attorney General, which is a statewide. And because this is his home district, and I'm assuming, does his wife represent this area since she took over his seat, or what happened?
Yes, she does. She wrote one of the bills that I've been fighting against that singled us out.
But
so I'm just trying to figure out, like, why is there so much overlap? I asked you about gentrification, and I asked you about these people who are jockeying for position in a community that was historically mostly Black. So when I'm listening to what you're saying, and everybody is vying for, it's like picking straws, if that makes sense. I don't know, but I'm just wondering why so many hands in the pot when you all seem to be doing such a good job getting out of receivership. Then you have these people who are currently occupying seats on your board working against you. Well, they're basically poking holes in your boat while you're trying to row. And so I'm just trying to figure out, like, how, first of all, are there 7 members on your school board right now?
Yes.
Okay, what the rest of I've heard about 2. What the rest of the 3 doing? Or 5? 3, 2.
You got the number right.
4. because you right here. So what are the rest of the 4 doing, and how are they feeling about the fact that you all are so close yet so far away because their forces working against you? Oh, you don't know? Okay, so that would
So
be
that's
a letter
so
that I need to send
so
out. Like,
um it's one of the problems. So how a lot of us feel in Oakland who have been here our whole lives is
mhm,
Oakland has been under attack for a while.
right.
And whether you go all the way back to when the Panthers were taken out, or if you want to talk about the crack epidemic, or if you want to talk about the waves of gentrification and the affordability crisis, we've just been under attack constantly.
Mhm,
And there is a real problem of folks trying to use the shine that Oakland provides them, while at the same time doing us dirty.
mm,
And I'm very aware that I'm different than the other people who are in elected office in Oakland. And I'm proud of that fact. And I made a promise to myself 12 years ago that I was going to find a way, and I have. And so we now have a path in place. And in the end, I would never set up a plan where I was dependent on other people I serve on a board with, but my
mm.
community rocks with me. You know, um, I was
And that's
redistricted.
important.
So I've been elected in 2 different districts, even though I didn't
Mhm,
move. I live in the family house. In 2020, I was elected in District 5, which is the Fruitvale neighborhood in Oakland, and it's historically a Latino district. Then I was
mhm.
redistricted to District 4, which is the Hills, which is the most privileged and the whitest of our 7 districts.
Oakland
And I
Hills,
was the
yep.
first one who looks like me elected to this seat in either one of those districts. And
They was trying to
so
get you up out of there.
I wear town business on my back. And
What?
so this is like we have a path forward. And of course, these people don't know anything and want to stand in the way. They've all profited off of how things have been.
Yeah.
You know, on our school board, one of the school board directors is a California Teacher Association regional director.
Hmm.
You can't get
Very
more
funny.
teacher union than that. You know,
You
I can
don't
go down
get.
the list of the jobs the other ones have. And our
It's a
school
lot
board is
going
not
on in
paid,
Oakland though for
so
you
they
guys
pay
too though.
them. Mhm. So
As far as
so
that
the
town
bigger
business you're talking about, it's a lot of money that goes off into your town, in a historically place that what a Huey P. Newton and the Black Panthers was coming out at, you know. So when you speak of the regentrifications that was going on, that's not really, but really is. It's a different level of attack of what it was to not just tear down a neighborhood, to tear down the egos that still surround the place,
Yeah,
because Oakland is a place where Black pride. It's a lot of that going on.
yeah.
Walking in the streets, painting on the walls, and all that. And when I think about that, I wonder, what was an attorney general going to do? Why would an attorney general want that seat or that power of control? And I can only think of one thing, for it to continue to go down the road that is going down.
Yep. I'll put it like this. I told both him and Tony Thurman, because Oakland is also State Superintendent Tony Thurman's home district.
Mm-hmm.
I told both of them, if you're planning on running for governor in 26, you better be careful.
Mm.
Straight up. They ain't flexing on us, their home district, if they think they're going to be elected to the governor's seat. And see, a lot of this is people. So I take this very seriously, and it took me a while to learn. But like, you know, I believed Malcolm when he said ballot or the bullet. And we figured out a way to break through with electoral politics.
Mhm.
And I can't cultivate a cadre of other people to run. Like that's just, you know, I'm very disappointed in what I see around me, but we've
Mm.
been able to carve out a path. And so
Mm-hmm.
now, even though we've had the state and these people picking at us, we had the highest rate of charter schools in the state of California. So some of us changed the state law, and we beat the charter schools in Sacramento. You know, I've run for school. You know, I lost for school board twice before I now won twice. And 4 school board elections in Oakland, district races. I had 1.5 million combined spent against me in those 4
Mm.
elections.
I
And
believe you, because
so,
like Ms. Lorene said, we commend you on the fact that one of the things that you guys have done that really is not an easy thing to do for those listening is to get yourself out of that debt. And if you wasn't doing what you were supposed to be doing and spending wisely the way you were supposed to be spending, you wouldn't be out of that debt. or that close to being out of that debt. So that right there goes to show you have been handling business. It's just I could just see the question of who else is going to help this business get handled while pushing the dream forward, for that it can affect the babies the way it's supposed to be affecting them in a positive regard, without somebody else who doesn't necessarily live in this district, raised in this district, come from this district, or have the same passion of this district, can equally stand up and get in the way of what I'm trying to build for my district.
Well, and I'm glad you said that, because one of the questions I wrote down is how many of your current board members are actually from Oakland? Look at the face.
Just me.
Oh, wow.
But
just you.
Just me. But we have a superintendent who's from Oakland, a general counsel who is from Oakland, a chief of staff who is from Oakland, all Black folk from Oakland. And so we've started to turn the district in a better direction. Most of our high schools now have alumni who are now principals of those high schools. And so we've also started making that shift. A lot of this, I grew up in the shadow of the Panthers, and a lot of what how we've turned our school district is really leaning into the self-empowerment that Panthers taught us. For too long, folks were, erase our debt. Oh, we need somebody else to come in and save us. Oh, forgive us of this burden. And at a certain point, we know that nobody's going to come save us, and we have to do it ourselves. And so we changed state law and flipped our entire school board to get back control. Now we are in the process of, I never thought we'd be able to leave receivership, and we're close. And so it's learning how to do these steps. It's rebuilding trust in the community, learning these processes so we then can figure out how we can be successful within them. I've written every major piece of legislation the school board's done in 4 years now. And, I'm actually a big believer in that I can beat anyone at their own game. It just takes work and grind and figuring out a way. And that's what I think we've been able to do in Oakland. And that's why I'm flipping out now, because we're so close, but we have such this narrow margin where if we mess up one step along the way, the sharks are out there and looking to kind of take us apart.
So with this, there's a vote coming up on Wednesday, and you've been really, really vocal about it. Now, my understanding in reading it is it's the vote to vote in the alternative spending thing, or the alternative spending budget that they're proposing, that the president and VP are proposing, or is it to vote in the package that you all have been trying to vote on, that the meetings keep getting canceled?
So there, like I said, I serve on a board where I don't have a lot of respect right now for the level of work that my colleagues do. And so this is our budget adjustment package for next year's budget, for the 25-26 school year budget. So we need to it's really making adjustments to our projected budget. So then we have the ability to pass a balanced budget in June. We knew that there's this projected hole in the budget that we had to fill. And so we've been working on this for 5 or 6 months to figure out how do we piece together $95 million to fill this budget hole. So it's like taking a little from there, changing a little there. The problem was we actually made too small of a budget adjustment last year because of these knuckleheads. We only did less than 20 million, which leaves a bigger adjustment for this year. This is all a part of our plan, and we knew this was coming. And it's actually how we've used our COVID relief dollars to have this larger pivot. And so over these last 5 months, we hear a lot of noise, but nobody submitted any alternatives to anything. They just flapped their gums saying they would. I've chaired the Budget and Finance Committee in OUSD. This is now my 3rd year. So this is what we do. And we've been working on it through the committee collectively all of these months. We have this plan. And now, days before the vote, people want to say, oh, I want to do something else. Oh, I'm not sure about this. When these numbers are locked in now at this point. And
Mm.
this is real serious, deliberate work. You can't sit there at a school board meeting and wordsmith a $95 million resolution.
At
So,
all.
and so now the board president has canceled a series of meetings where there could have been more discussions to maybe figure something else out, but they don't really want to do it. It's just kind of fake talk at this point. And now there's not even really going to be another vote on the package on the agenda. This is where it gets a little bit complicated, because we technically don't have to vote on the budget adjustment package. We just have to vote on the change in staffing. And that's what we're going to be voting on Wednesday, which
The
means
change in staffing.
the adjustment package and the numbers that we've worked on are all locked in now. And that vote on a final budget happens in June. And so this vote for the, and remember, in Oakland, we suffer from failed leadership across the board. So it's not just failed leadership from the school board. It's also failed leadership from union leadership. So the city is a whole different mess. Yes, union leadership, and then also our nonprofit sector. So like our unions in Oakland at OUSD have not engaged their members at all, or engaged with us during us putting together this adjustment package, which impacts all of their members, but they chose to just not engage. And so there's been this lack of real engagement where it should happen. And so we've gone month by month by month. Now everything's locked in. There's not going to be another vote, but we have to vote on the changes in staffing, or we can't issue March 15th letters for the changes that these adjustments reflect, which means we can't change staffing. And if we lock in our staffing for next year, we won't be able to afford it. It's also things like, just to give a little more context, in OUSD over the last 2 years, we've negotiated almost $100 million in raises for our unions. Like we negotiated a 17% 1-year raise for our teachers. And so if we're going to be able to give these raises, because the funding we get is very limited. So if we're going to negotiate these raises, which we had to, you have to adjust staffing levels. Otherwise, you can't afford it. And so this starts to be a normal process that a healthy
push and pull
have. But it's all come down to this vote. And so like one of the meetings that was canceled last week on Thursday, on the 20th, the school board president just out of the blue canceled a meeting. That was a meeting that was scheduled 4 months ago, where we were supposed to have this final vote. And in my mind, that meant if it didn't go the right way, I would have still had time to figure out a way to correct things. But now, since this vote is not happening till Wednesday, if we don't have 4 votes, we could be in crisis and there might be no way out of it.
But do they understand the importance of what it is that you're trying to convey? Because even if I'm listening to you and I'm listening to you say you're going to vote on changes to staff, based on what? Based on what budget? Based on what's in place? Based on like how is this being decided?
It's hard to explain, because this has been the problem with the current school board majority. And so there has only been one time when the budget adjustment package was discussed and presented publicly. And that was at the February 6th Budget and Finance Committee meeting, because I chair the Budget and Finance Committee. So I set the agenda and I made sure that we discussed it there. But they haven't brought it forward. And the way it technically works, it doesn't really need a vote on its own. It's already kind of in place. But this is an awful practice. And this means that the community has no further opportunity to engage. This year, we're calling our adjustment package Attachment C, because last year we approved one and voted in February for Attachment B. And the year before, we voted on and approved Attachment A. So everyone knows what the process is. The
Okay.
board president has been told by many people, including senior staff, this is not how things are supposed to work. Our last board meeting, the video that you saw of me at the last board meeting was the result of a very long meeting that started with some of these directors cussing at me in closed session.
Oh.
And then when we went to open session, at one point during the meeting, the board president didn't want me to speak in my allotted time. And so she called a recess to the meeting for 15 or 20 minutes to try to prevent me from speaking. I spoke anyway once we went back.
We know.
But so like my new thing now is I can't figure out what's in these folks' heads. You can't negotiate with crazy, but also especially here, I want to there is a racial context that's really developed over the last 2 years now also. So our current board president is white. The lightest and fairest school board directors join her in their voting block. The county superintendent is white. Last year's school board president was a white man. And these folks have colluded together to push their own agenda. And a lot of them are personally uncomfortable with me. And I don't think they care about us at all. And so it's been this mixture of things where I watch how they speak to our superintendent or to our senior staff who are all Black folk. And I know what it means when people have that sort of arrogance, even though they're really ignorant on how things are. And so it's been navigating these things, and it's why it's exciting that we're here and that we even have a chance to have these votes to be free. But there's just all of these things stacked up against it. And it's a real thing where everyone has profited off of how things have been. Everyone's egos have been really flexed by them thinking they're in these positions, and folks are just selfish. And so there's just been this real resistance from some individuals, and it just makes things harder than it should be.
Melissa?
There are so many things running through my head right now. First of all, thank you for being here, because you've provided so much information and things and like prompted questions that I wouldn't have even thought about. I want to ask about how this debt, how does this affect the students within the school district directly? Because you talked about, if I remember correctly, like it's been over the course of 20 years that it's been needed to pay back, correct? Right?
Yes.
So there's been students going through these schools in this district for the past 20 years that have somehow been affected by this. So how have the students been affected by it?
Well, I think there's three really big ways. So the first way is we have spent, I'll just use an average, about $4 million a year in debt payments. And so that's $4 million that should go to educating our students and providing services. Because of the debt, that's what's been held over our head. And so because of that, it's allowed outside forces to have control over some of our decisions, which has not been good. And it should never be that way, where a community doesn't have the right to control their own local public education system.
Yeah.
And then the third one that's maybe the most dangerous is that debt has been used as a constant threat. So, if we don't do this, the state's gonna come in and take over again. Oh, we don't have money. Oh, we have to close schools. Oh, we have to do this because the boogeyman is always out there waiting to pounce on us at any moment. There's actually been very little direct action taken by the trustee since 2009. What used to happen on the school board before I got to the board in 2020 is the trustee or somebody would call the school board and say, hey, I wouldn't do that if I were you. And then they wouldn't do it. And so when I got to the board, that's not how I operate. And so nobody's going to tell me how to represent my over 50,000 constituents. And if they want to take action afterwards, then I'll fight them every step of the way. And so it's been that mixture of things. And then beyond those like three things, there's the other part, the psychological part.
Mhm.
We've been in this position of servitude with this colonial model where literally we call the people overseers, and we've been in this now for 22 years and counting.
Colonizer.
And it really does a number on us, as we're seeing other things taken away from us. I mean, shoot, in Oakland, we just lost all three of our sports franchises in 5 years.
Yeah.
And so it's been all of these things together. And to me, it's no coincidence that this has happened in the birthplace of the Black Panther Party.
Mhm.
Do you have a question, Leah?
I'm just kind of thinking of a question to have just because it's a lot of information to take in and just a lot to process. Because I think the question I had was also related to what Melissa had said about how it would be like the debt would be affecting the students in that way. But how would you think in the way that you would intend and hopefully for things to be strewed around and where they would be, and obviously in a better aspect and better way, how would you think that would positively affect the students going forward with the plan that's,
So if they were to enact the budget,
Yeah.
the budget adjustments, how would that impact the students in a positive way?
Well, it will help us get to where we need to go, but we're still we've stabilized the district, and we have a couple more years, and then it's going to be firmly stabilized. But one of the things that, one of the reasons I'm really frustrated is we're behind in our work. So the other thing that we're trying to do is restructure and re-envision our school district. I passed a resolution for that about 6 months ago. And to me, that involves a 12 to 18-month community conversation so we can start figuring out how to build for the future. Because we need to be really careful that now that we've stabilized things, we don't just immediately build without having these conversations first. And, since there's been other people in charge of our district for a long time, the way our district looks now just doesn't make sense, and it's not what we would want. And so if we can just get over this hump, it's hopefully getting us into some real community conversations to help inform the plans going forward. But I wouldn't say we're to the point yet where we're making these adjustments strictly based on what's going to be best for students. We're still cleaning up past mess. And let me just, another thing that I think, at least for me, that was really important. People close to me will tell you that I became obsessed with this when my schools were closed. And I spent a lot of time going to school board meetings, and particularly budget and finance committee meetings. And I became self-taught, and I learned how to track these things. And so that's just another, and then for years I used to do workshops or be out in the community trying to help teach other folks how to feel more comfortable tracking these things. That's really the other part of it. Over time, we've been able to build up a real base of support for some of the ideas that we were pushing in Oakland. People believe in a lot of the politics that we share, but to actually bring it down to policy points, build up a base of support, have the information, and then be able to kind of organize a plan of attack, that's where we've really been successful. And so when I got to the board, I already had my own understanding of the budget. So I would never fall for it if somebody was passing these bad opinions, like you all had in Sacramento. I can guarantee in Sacramento, most of the years where you were told you had a budget deficit, the dollar amount that they told you was 30 million, because that's been the playbook all over the place. And I could tell you what they said because they were saying the same thing in Oakland and other cities. And so getting some knowledge about that. And then I was lucky also where I was a founding member of the Journey for Justice National Alliance, and hooking up with G2 Brown out of Chicago and other cities across the country that were facing the same things that we were also gave me some more perspective and understanding. So we were able to really come up with a plan to turn this. But to everyone, it is so important that we learn how to engage directly with the school district, especially around the budget and finances, and just figure out a way to not have that be a barrier for us anymore.
Right. Fox, do you have anything?
Man, I just commend you for educating yourself to the knowledge it takes to put you guys back in such a better place. I know what it is to have to pick up the book and read the book and then not know the definition of what it is I'm reading, to have to go get another book to get this definition, then go get the dictionary, then get a little bit of help over here. You know, that within itself takes a lot of hard work just to be able to help my own community. You know what I mean? So taking within that knowledge yourself and knowing what you're talking about and being able to speak educatedly and know what you're talking about, I commend you. You know what I mean? And then not just coming to the table with said knowledge, but coming to the table ready to fight and stand up for what it is I believe in. This is a craft that is a dying out in nature. People believe it's a different way to fight. Take it back to the old school reasons of how to fight. Open that book up and spit that knowledge out. Because like you said, I know what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're saying. Now you can't use this against me. You're going to have to come with another playbook. And now since you understand I'm reading this playbook, you know I'm going to read that playbook too. So kudos to you for continuing to come up and come forward and do what you can in your push to be able to do something righteous for a generation who was up under us. You know what I mean? To make it right for their educational practices and going against people who are, I don't want to say foreigners, but clearly you wasn't raised where we was raised at, and what may work over there don't always work over here, you know?
And just so before we get to emails, he's not talking about foreigners as in immigrants. He's talking about people who are not from the community. Yes. Just in case people want to sit up here and send no emails. Yes. Understand the context in which you were talking. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
No, that's a perfect example of what I'm saying, because I do want that to be noted in what we're saying, because like he pointed out, we have problems out here in Sacramento too. And when I go to these meetings out here in Sacramento, come to find out they live way over there. So, but you're talking about what's going on right here and what's affecting this child right here.
Well, not just are they talking about what's going on right here, they're making decisions based on what's going on over here, and they're not from here.
Detrimental decisions.
Absolutely.
About a child's life who, like you said, remove the ego off the table, remove all this other stuff off the table, and who really gonna suffer from these decisions? I'm gonna eat pizza tonight. This kid gonna be eating out the trash can because of a decision that you made. He ain't gonna be able to get a job or get his education on because you have stolen financial things from out of this kid's education when it was already bad. The books is already bad. The Chrome books is already outdated. So certain finances is needed upon these tables when educating these kids. They need the new Chromebook. They need the school bus to get them kids. They need that lunch in the middle of the day. They need the new books to understand the education of what they're facing with as the world continues to evolve. They need these things. So to find out that not only did you guys have to get a loan just to be able to teach the kids from your own district that the state should have been paying for anyway, I'm gonna loan you money to open up a school that's in the district that my kid go to. Not only that, but you take this thing. I didn't even know that you could take a school debt and throw it out there on Wall Street somewhere.
Me neither.
And this is the stuff that people be talking about, though, when they talking about the school to prison pipeline and how people are getting paid for this stuff.
Yeah, Melissa likes that. Melissa likes that. I see her
all the way out on Wall Street with our kids' education.
I'm just as surprised as you, Melissa.
And this ain't no college.
No, I agree with Fox, and so many things connect back to the school to prison pipeline, and like taking classes at Berkeley, where any opportunity I get to talk about like bring in knowledge on the school to prison pipeline, I really appreciate. But I just want to thank you for being here, because there's so many, I think education is important. And just like being able to, there's families and communities and students and people who don't understand why things are happening to them. And so you being able to break down the issues and accurately and very eloquently explain to why these certain things are happening so high up that affect us all the way down here is very important. So I thank you for that.
well, I don't know about the high up and all the way down here. And let me just throw in go Bears. I appreciate those comments from everyone. I want to just I'd be upset with myself if I didn't spin this a little bit. A lot of this, though, now for me and for Oakland is a positive story.
Yeah.
You know, we literally made a movement out of nothing. And the fact that somebody like me who, you know, 12 years ago, I was Coach Mike on the playground and happy. And it became necessary to do this. And we've been able to organize the community. We've a million, there have been 100 different incidents that have happened that have really helped put me in this position. And it's because my school district has given me everything. I mean, my mom was a teacher also before. So literally from the roof over my head to, at least in elementary school, a world-class education. It got my younger brother to the Ivy League, and now he's a lawyer. And this is what we were always taught to do. I mean, my parents met in Mississippi working Freedom Summer with SNCC back in the day. And so this is something that was important to us. We were raised on this. And I really want to encourage everyone to just get more engaged and more involved. I've proven to myself that one person can make a difference. People get mad because I say I too much still, but that's what a lot of this was a lot of the time. And there's a way for everyone to get more engaged and more involved. I'm always available if I can either help light a fire, or I'm always available for technical advice on things. And the other thing, just hearing from the panelists, I've met a lot of people now, kind of up the food chain, they would say. I have not met very many impressive people at all. The people I meet in settings like this, or just every day, are much more impressive than these other people that we call leaders. And we need to, you know, that self-empowerment model. A lot of us in Oakland say, you know, only we can save us.
That's right.
That's what I really want to hopefully get more people on. And when I'm asked about, you know, what are these things going to do for the students, my only hope, because I'm about to turn 52, my hope is that we are educating that generation right now, and I can create the spaces for the youngsters who will save me and everyone else. And that's really what a lot of this is about for me. And I'm just always available. And I appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk about things as well.
And we thank you again. Melissa has said it already, but we thank you for coming on and enlightening us. It's interesting to me always when I read something on Facebook and I reach out like, hey, we do a podcast. You want to come on? And with no hesitation, you're like, I'm interested. So I thank you for even responding to my message. I know it was kind of random, but I like to make sure that we're understanding the things that are going on around us. We are really big on civic engagement around here. And I would love to talk to you maybe offline about our legislative open house and getting some Oakland kids to represent so that we can continue to go down and understand the difference between state politics, local politics, and what happens when they start to intermingle or when they start to push their own agendas. I'm really interested in that. So again, thank you for coming on. We are Black versus the Board of Education. We have run out of time, but would you come back at a later time, at a later date?
Yes. And I appreciate this. And yes, and yes to any advocacy days in Sacramento. And also as if budget issues or other issues with the school district come up for folks, please think of me as a reference. It's always good for us to check what's happening in other districts to make sure we can stay on top of what's happening in our own. But yes, I'm always available.
I love that. And we're going to hold you to that. So with that, we're going to give y'all the peace sign. We're going to check y'all out next week right here on Black versus the Board of Education. Peace out.